40,000 people. That's how many Japanese citizens died alone in their apartments last year, and were not found for days, weeks, or in some cases, over a year. Not in a war, not in a disaster, just quietly, behind a locked door, in a country famous for its order, its safety, its technology. The Japanese government has a name for it: Kodokushi, lonely death. And in 2024, they counted more of them than ever before.
Japan is the world's most rapidly aging society. Over 29% of its population is 65 or older. And for a growing number of those people, the last chapter of life is written entirely alone. But Kodoshi, which literally translates to lonely death or solitary death, isn't just about dying without family nearby. It's about dying in a way that nobody notices. A 2024 national survey, the first ever compiled nationwide, found that over 76,000 people died alone in Japan that year. Tokyo alone recorded 7,699 such deaths. Osaka, 5,329. To put that in perspective, that's larger than the population of many small American towns, quietly disappearing every single year. What makes this distinctly Japanese, and why the rest of the world should pay attention, is how the system around it has failed. Japan has one of the world's most advanced infrastructure systems, yet something as basic as knowing whether your neighbor is still alive has become a national crisis.
To understand Kodokushi, you have to go back, not just decades, but centuries. In traditional Japanese society, death was a communal event. The E system, the multi-generational household structure, meant that grandparents, parents, and children lived under one roof. Dying alone was not just unusual, it was almost unthinkable. You died surrounded by family. You were watched over. You were seen. The Meiji era began the first fracture. Rapid industrialization pulled workers from rural villages into the cities. The extended family structure started to crack. But even through the Showa era, Japan's post-war economic miracle, the corporate system created a new kind of community. You had your company, you had your colleagues, you had a structure. That wound from the E-system's collapse never fully healed, and then, in the 1990s, it reopened. The lost decade destroyed the social contract. Companies that had promised lifetime employment began laying off workers. The men who had sacrificed everything for the corporation, who had let friendships lapse, who had moved city after city following transfers, who had never built anything outside their job, were suddenly cut loose, and they had no one. The first widely reported Kodokushi case came earlier, in the 1970s. A 69-year-old man in Kawasaki died alone in his apartment. His rent and utilities continued to be paid automatically from his bank account. No one came, no one called. His body was not discovered for 3 years, until his savings ran out and the landlord finally opened the door. 3 years, and the system never noticed. Fast forward to today. The numbers are staggering. In 2024, the Japanese government's first nationwide survey counted over 76,000 solitary deaths. Of those, roughly 40,000 died at home. About 4,000 were not found for over a month, and 130 people were not discovered for more than a year. Source: Cabinet Office, Xinhua, 2025. Think about that for a moment. 130 human beings lying behind locked apartment doors for over 12 months in the middle of one of the most densely populated countries on Earth. Now let me give you a face for these numbers. Picture an elderly man. Let's call him Tanaka-san. Living in a small apartment in Nerima Ward, Tokyo. He's 74. His pension is modest. His children moved to Nagoya years ago for work. They call on holidays. He tells him he's fine. He is not fine. Put yourself in the position of someone like Tanaka-san. You are not dramatic about your situation. You don't ask for help. That would be a burden. You gaman. You endure. You wait. And in 2026, a Saitama welfare official was arrested for stealing 1.4 million yen from the bank account of an elderly man who had died alone. Source: Yahoo Japan News, 2026. What strikes me most about that last case is this. The person designated by the system to protect the lonely elderly was the one who exploited him after his death.
When Japanese people discuss Kodokushi online, the tone is not what you might expect. It's not distant. It's not clinical. It's terrifyingly personal.
I live alone too, and honestly, I might just be found as a corpse one day. I can totally see it happening to me.
In the end, Japan is a country where if you get sick or lose your job once, you just quietly disappear alone.
We call it lonely death, but dying alone itself isn't the problem. The real horror is that nobody even notices you're gone.
My father lives alone in the city, and I can't visit often because I'm also barely surviving. Reading 68,000 lonely deaths makes my chest hurt.
And honestly, reading through hundreds of these comments, I was struck by how the emotion shifts. Anger at the government, resignation, and a surprising number of people in their 40s and 50s writing about their own future. This is not how Western media tends to cover Kodokushi. English-language articles lean toward the exotic, eerie photographs, strangeness, dark curiosity. Reddit threads introduce the concept like a morbid novelty. What those stories miss is that for Japanese people, Kodokushi is not strange. It's a mirror they can't stop looking at. This is where Western analysis of Japan often gets it wrong. Kodokushi gets framed as a cultural quirk. And while culture plays a role, that framing misses the structural machinery underneath. Layer 1. Cultural. Japan's concept of gaman, endurance without complaint, runs deep. Asking for help carries shame. Many elderly Japanese will decline welfare visits, decline to report loneliness, decline to be a burden. The tatemae, public face, says, "I'm fine." The hone, private truth, says otherwise. Layer 2. Structural. Corporate transfer culture means adult children follow jobs to distant cities. Mandatory overtime means those children cannot visit. The social safety net for single elderly people is underfunded. The government only began compiling nationwide lonely death statistics in 2024. That's not a policy failure. That's a policy absence. Layer 3. Psychological. The learned helplessness of Japan's lost generation. People who reached middle age with their identity entirely wrapped in a company that no longer exists. The social skill of casual neighborhood connection, kinjo tsukai, has atrophied in modern urban apartments. You don't know your neighbor's name. When the smell finally reaches the hallway, you realize you never did. Taken together, Kodokushi is not a cultural anomaly. It is the logical outcome of modern urban Japan. Atomized labor, weakened community, aging demographics, and a welfare system still catching up.
Japan's government passed the Act on Promotion of Measures to Prevent Social Isolation and Loneliness in April 2024. They compiled the first ever statistics. They are, finally, treating Kodokushi as a policy problem rather than a private tragedy. But the numbers keep rising. Some cities are experimenting with solutions. Convenience store chains doing wellness checks on isolated elderly customers. Postal workers reporting when mail piles up. New apps letting family members check if an elderly parent has turned on the stove that morning. Small things, but they're there. Here's what I find most uncomfortable about Kodokushi, and why it matters far beyond Japan. Japan is simply ahead of the rest of the world on this curve. South Korea, Germany, the United Kingdom, all aging rapidly, urbanizing, atomizing. The neighbor you've never spoken to. The parent you haven't called in 3 weeks. The elderly man in apartment 3B whose name you've never learned. Kodokushi is not Japan's problem. It's a preview. So here's what I want to ask you. If you lived in a country where 1 in 20 elders might die unnoticed, what would you want your government to change? What would you want yourself to change? And in your own city tonight, how far are you really from Japan's lonely future?